Good morning, good day, good evening, good night, wherever you may be. I'm Bhante Sanathavihari, and welcome to Buddhist Insights Empty Cloud. So nice to have you with us today. Just give it a few moments, let people jump online. Life is very busy, and we rush from one thing to another. Hello, Bhumika. Hello, Manal. Hello, Geeta. Hello to everyone. I hope that you're doing well. Hello, John. Hello, Rebecca. Hello, Karuna. Yes, so nice to have you all with us. Hello, Sud and Kathy. And Guy. Hello to everyone. Yes. So we're going to continue with the same topic, talking about our departed ones. Because in my own experience, I've noticed there's a lot of misunderstandings, right? Or maybe things get kind of exaggerated or misunderstood or other things like that when it comes to with petas, right? Usually we think about hungry ghosts, right? Like a disembodied spirit. Usually we think about it in our own kind of Western context or in our kind of um, whatever our own ethnic context is about like spirits out there in the world. And this kind of is misleading, right? Because it kind of, we talk about no self. So then all of a sudden there's this self that comes out of you and starts floating around. So it's one of the kind of misconceptions that we have, right? So it's just one of the other life forms to that beings can take, right? In throughout samsara, just like yakas, right? And devas and asuras and animals and humans, just another way of being. But it's a particular one that kind of is similar to many of us in the kind of imaginations we have about the afterlife or about monsters and things like that, right? So here, when we look at petas, we think about them as like evil, right, or scary and things like that. But actually, we should feel some concern, kind of sad for them, right? They're in a very miserable state. It actually should be the other way around. Uh, and we're gonna see that today. We saw that a little bit about that last week when we went through the first three verses of the Petavatthu, and basically the lesson from that was about the benefits of giving and also uh, not being foolish, right? Like not being hedonistic, which our culture is so much about now. Just going out there and enjoying your lives. That was the young man who basically threw away all his wealth and he lost everything and he was on the streets. And then since he really never had an education in the sense of knowing what's good or wrong, he was deceived by some people that he met, and he was brought into a burglary heist. Then he was set up, so then he was caught, he was thrown in jail, and all these kind of things, right? Because he didn't know the benefits of giving, and he didn't know a life outside of sensuality. So he was about to be reborn in the as a peta, as a hungry ghost. But luckily enough, Venerable Arahant Mahamoggallana saw this with his psychic powers, and he said, I have the chance to let this person make a meritorious act, because this person had was going to receive some food as his last meal before they hung him for robbery. And at that moment, he thought, why am I going to eat? It doesn't serve me. I'm going to die anyways. Why don't I give it to this venerable? So by giving the food to the venerable Arahant Mahamoggallana, he was able to bypass, the being reborn as a hungry ghost, and then he was reborn as a tree spirit. I like to think tree spirits as fairies. Uh, since we're calling Petas hungry ghosts, might as well keep with the Western kind of map of spirits and things like that. So then he was kind of reborn as a fairy, and that's kind of one of the examples they give, right? About why it's important to give, the benefits of giving to the Sangha, how the Sangha is the incomparable field for giving in the world, making merit in the world. So that's also how the sutta ends that we covered last week. And today I'm going to touch on another sutta from the Petavatthu, a couple of verses, and then but first I'm gonna start with a sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya 10, 177. So for those of you that like to follow along at home, I know that you do. I'm going to be looking at the Anguttara Nikaya 10.177. And hello to Maria, Nico, Alex, Hoi, Jayanta, Usha, and everyone else out there. Hello to everyone. Okay. So this one's called Tu Janu Sonin. And it goes like this. Then Janu Sonin, the Brahmin, went to the Blessed One and, upon on arrival, exchanged courteous greetings with him. After an exchange of friendly greetings and courtesies, he sat to one side. As he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, Master Gautama, you know that we Brahmins give gifts, make offerings. May this gift occur to our dead relatives, right? Peta is the departed dead relatives. May our dead relatives partake of this gift. Now, Master Gautama, does the gift occur to our dead relatives? Do our dead relatives partake of that gift? This is a question that I often get by the young Sinhalese generation, right? The kids or even teenagers or even young adults, since they have a different worldview, right? They always like, what is this just like silliness? Are we just going through the things to like help us cope with this trauma or this grief? Or is there really something to this, Bhante? So for those of you that, have doubts about the origins of these practices, like giving to the Sangha and pouring water and doing all these kind of things, and hopefully this will bring some clarity to you. In possible places, Brahmin, it occurs to them, but not in impossible places, right? So not all the time, sometimes. And which, Master Gautama, are the possible places? Which are the impossible places? There is the case, Brahman, where a certain person takes life, takes what is not given, engages in sensual misconduct, engages in false speech, engages in divisive speech, engages in abusive speech, engages in idle chatter, is covetous, bears ill will, and has wrong views. With the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in hell. He lives there. He remains there by means of whatever is the food of hell beings. This is an impossible place for the gift to occur to one staying there. So the hell beings, right? It is impossible. Let me just, not very good at scrolling. Okay, there we go. Then there is the case where a certain person takes life, takes what is not given, engages in sexual misconduct, engages in false speech, engages in divisive speech, engages in abusive speech, engages in idle chatter, is covetous, bears ill will, and has wrong views. With the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the animal womb. He lives there, he remains there, by means of whatever is the food of common animals. This, too, is an impossible place for that gift to occur to one staying there. Right? So is the animal world. Then there is a case where a certain person refrains from taking life, refrains from taking what is not given, refrains from sensual misconduct, refrains from false speech, refrains from divisive speech, refrains from abusive speech, refrains from idle chatter, is not covetous, bears no ill will, and has right view. With the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of human beings. He lives there, he remains there, by means of whatever is the food of the human beings. This, too, is an impossible place for that gift to occur to one staying there. Then there is a case where a certain person refrains from taking life, refrains from taking what is not given, refrains from sensual misconduct, refrains from false speech, refrains from divisive speech, refrains from abusive speech, refrains from idle chatter, is not covetous, bears no ill will, and has right views. With the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the devas. He lives there, he remains there, by means of whatever is the food of a deva. This, too, is an impossible place for that gift to occur to one staying there. Then there is the case where a certain person takes life, takes what is not given, engages in sexual misconduct, engages in false speech, engages in divisive speech, engages in abusive speech, engages in idle chatter, is covetous, bears ill will, and has wrong views. With the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the realm of hungry ghost. He lives there, he remains there by means of whatever is the food of a hungry ghost. He lives there, he remains that by means of whatever his friends or relatives give in dedication to him. This is the possible place for that gift to occur to one staying there. So we see all these different scenarios, right? As a human, as an animal, as a deva, all these different things. And the Buddha says basically, it's not possible. It's not possible for them to receive. But as a peta, right? As this hungry ghost form, they are able to partake in rejoicing in what is given and the benefits of the punya kama, meritorious actions. But Master Gautama, if the dead relative does not appear in that possible place, who partakes of that gift, right? So like if we do a ceremony when our departed one passes away, but we think that none of our departed ones are born as a peta, right? What happens if none of them are reborn in the hungry ghost? What about if they're all devas, so they're all reborn as humans or animals or in the hell, right? That's what he's asking. Then the Buddha says, other dead relatives, right? The dead relatives of the Petas, Brahman, who have reappeared in that place. Other dead relatives, Brahman, who have reappeared in that place is possible. So this happened. There's going to be somebody that you know. But Master Gautama, if the dead relative does not reappear in that possible place, and other dead relatives have not reappeared in that possible place, then who partakes of that gift? It's impossible, Brahman. It cannot be that over this long time, that possible place is devoid of one's dead relatives. But at any rate, the donor does not go without reward. Does Master Gautama describe any preparation for the impossible place? Scroll down. Brahman, I do describe a preparation for that impossible place. There is a case where a certain person takes life, takes what is not given, engages in sexual misconduct, engages in false speech, engages in divisive speech, engages in abusive speech, engages in idle chatter, is covetous, bears ill will, has wrong views, but he gives food, drink, cloth, vehicles, garlands, scents, creams, bed, lodging, and lamps to Brahmins and contemplatives. With the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of elephants. There he receives food, drinks, flowers, and various ornaments. It's because he took life, took what is not given, engaged in sensual misconduct, engaged in false speech, engaged in divisive speech, engaged in abusive speech, engaged in idle chatter, was covetous, bore ill will, and had wrong views, that he reappears in the company of elephants. But it's because he gave food, drink, cloth, vehicles, garlands, scents, creams, bed, lodgings, and lamps to Brahmins and contemplatives, that he receives food, drinks, flowers, and various ornaments. This is beautiful because it reminds me of the gradual path and how mostly in the Digha Nikaya, how the Buddha starts with the benefits of giving, right? And then sila, and then the heavenly world and doing wholesome actions and things like that. So here we can see that, even if you can't get your stuff together, you can't get your life together, right? You're a little naughty. You should at least do meritorious deeds, right? So you kind of get a better rebirth. I mean, so many people love elephants, and now we know that elephants are so intelligent, and it's actually one of the animals, I think, by the right, that that monks are not allowed to eat, like elephants, tigers.
So maybe,
yeah. So at least you'll be safe from monks eating you, or people offering you to monks and things like that. So there's a lot of benefits to being born as an elephant, and especially if you're an elephant in Sri Lanka, they're a little naughty. They take food from people and they kind of hold up cars and ask them for food. You have to pay a toll to the elephant. So it's kind of similar to a human life to some extent, and they live long. So I mean, it's not that bad. I'm kind of trying to sell you to practice dana and giving. If whatever the case is, maybe you can't keep the fifth precept. It's so hard for so many people. It's hard for so many people to keep the third precept, right? It's almost impossible for people to keep the fourth one, the one about speech, right? So, you can kind of make up for that in a sense and invest in your future by giving to religious or spiritual people. Then there is the case where a certain person takes life, has wrong views, but gives food, lamps to Brahmins and contemplatives. With the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of horses, in the company of cattle, in the company of poultry, There he receives food, drinks, and flowers and various ornaments. It is because he took life and had wrong views that he reappeared in the company of poultry. But it's because he gave food, drinks, and lamps and Brahmins to contemplatives, and he received food, drinks, flowers, and various ornaments. So this makes me think of, like, you guys remember that movie Beverly Hills Chihuahua? Like a chihuahua that's very well pampered and lives in Beverly Hills. So like, in maybe even here, like Teddy. So like, although these beings in a previous life, were a little naughty, and maybe that's why they were born as animals, they had some generosity, right? They possibly were very generous when they did have their chance to be a human. And then that's why they're lucky enough to be born as an animal in a place where they receive all the things that they need in their world taken care of, right? So I know many of you are envious of Teddy, and you wish you were the monastic cat. So if you don't think you have enough, you can keep the precepts to the degree where you can be reborn as a human, then please keep practicing dana, and you might be the future monastic cat. Then there's the case where a certain person refrains from taking life, refrains from taking what is not given, refrains from sexual misconduct, refrains from false speech, refrains from divisive speech, refrains from abusive speech, refrains from idle chatter, is not covetous, bears no ill will, and has right views. And he gives food, drink, cloth, vehicles, garlands, scents, and creams, bed, lodging, and lamps to Brahmins and contemplatives. With the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of human beings. There he experiences the 5 strings of human sensuality: delightful sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tactile sensation. It is because he refrained from taking what is not given, refrained from sensual misconduct, refrained from false speech, refrained from divisive speech, refrained from abusive speech, refrained from idle chatter, was not covetous, bore no ill will, and had right views, that he reappears in the company of human beings. And it is because he gave food, drinks, cloth, vehicles, garlands, scents, creams, bed, lodging, lamps to Brahmins and contemplatives that he experienced the 5 strings of human sensuality. So now you add to giving, keeping the precepts, and then you have a good probability of being reborn as a human to enjoy this human form, right? So there's nothing wrong necessarily with sensual pleasures, right? There's nothing wrong with eating a nice meal or enjoying the sun. Just, don't get attached to it. Don't let your desires drive you. Don't base your whole life around this kind of hedonistic purpose. But those are those things that, if they're offered and they're worked for in the proper way, in the wholesome way, then yeah, we can partake in them in a skillful manner, right? So we know that the Buddha had his very nice scented chamber, right? That he also partook in that, and that he ate at the king's meals. And it's not only because he was an arahant and free from all those things, but then other monks would come with him. He would take the other monks to these nice meals and these nice events, and he would give very nice robes that were meant for him to the monastic community. So there's nothing necessarily wrong with all the nice things that we have in that we can experience as humans. It's just that we have to be very aware of the dangers in them. But that's one of the benefits of being born a human, just like the devas, right? One of the benefits of being born a deva is that you're almost free from any kind of very gross suffering, and you delight and enjoy in all the benefits of being in the heavenly world. And we continue. Then there is the case where a certain person refrains from taking life and has right views, right? So all the precepts and has right views. He gives food, drink, cloth, vehicles, garlands, scents, creams, bed, lodging, and lamps to Brahmins and contemplatives. With the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of devas. There he experiences the 5 strings of divine sensuality. It's because he refrained from taking what is not given and had right views that he reappears in the company of devas. It is because he gave food, drinks, cloth, vehicles, garlands, scents, creams, bed, lodgings, and lamps to Brahmins and contemplatives that he experiences the 5 strings of divine sensuality. But at any rate, Brahmin, the donor does not go without reward. It is amazing, Master Gautama. It is astonishing how it's enough to make one want to give a gift, enough to make one want to make an offering, where the donor does not go without reward. That's the way it is, Brahmin. That's the way it is. The donor does not go without reward. Magnificent, Master Gautama, magnificent. Just as if it were to place upright what was turned over, to reveal what was hidden, to show the way to one who was lost, or to carry a lamp in the dark, so that those with eyes could see the forms. In the same way has Master Gautama, through many lines of reasoning, made the Dhamma clear. I go to Master Gautama for refuge. To the Dhamma and to the community of monks, may Master Gautama remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge from this day forward for life. So even if you go into this kind of very unlikely scenario that there is no one in the Petaloka, right? In the departed realm. When you do an offering, you yourself receive benefits for making these offerings, right? So for those young Asian Buddhist youth in the United States or in Canada, wherever you may be, there's still benefit to doing this meritorious act, even if our departed ones are born as a deva and they don't need it, or they're born as a human and they can't receive it, or they're born as an animal or in hell and can't receive it. Um, and even if there's for some reason not even a cousin or up to 7 generations of a relative in the Petaloka, then we ourselves receive, and we also set an example for future generations, where the Buddha talks about this importance of setting an example for future generations to practice generosity, and maybe just for our community, right? To show the benefits of coming together and also practicing charity and not hoarding and not only thinking about oneself. There's so many benefits, even very mundane benefits to our everyday world of altruistic and compassionate practices that we can all benefit from to transform our society. So yes, so the thing to remember here is that if they're born in the Petas are the only ones, right, out of all the beings that can receive this. But since we don't know, we just go ahead and do it, right? We don't know unless some of us have psychic powers and we can look into the Petaloka who's there. We just do it just in case, right? It's kind of like our insurance policy. Just in case any of our relatives are there, we do it. And if they're in the Deva Loka, well, good for them. They don't even need our merits, but it's maybe they can see us. Sometimes if they're born in the Deva Loka, they can see us and they'll rejoice. And they're like, oh, my son, my daughter, my cousin, my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad, look, they're doing something good. And that makes them happy, right? So then they don't have to kind of worry about you anymore because you're doing well. Yeah. And then I know this one was a little longer. I'm going to share with you one more. And then this one is from the Petavatthu. And I put the link, and the number on the description of the video. It's called Outside the Walls. In English, that's what they translate it as. And it's Petavatthu number 5. Tirokuṭṭapetavatthu. So it starts like this. The Supreme Buddha gave this sermon to King Bimbisara after an alms offering to the Sangha. After they have been born in the ghost world, right, the Petaloka, departed relatives will come back to their own houses and stand by the doors. They also stand outside walls and at intersections. Please don't get scared. Some people in the family will enjoy delicious food without remembering their departed relatives. Departed relatives are forgotten because of their own bad karma. Some compassionate people offer delicious food and drinks to virtuous people and share merits with their departed relatives, saying, "Let this be for our relatives. May our relatives be happy." Departed relatives gather to these places and highly appreciate the offering. They bless their relatives, saying, "May our relatives who compassionately offered us these gifts have long, happy, and healthy lives." The givers also gain good results, as we learned in the previous sutta. Beings in the ghost world do not farm, herd cattle, trade, buy, sell, or use gold and money. They survive on merits shared by humans. As water that rains on a mountaintop flows down to the bottom, so will the merit shared from the human world reach the beings in the ghost world. Just as streams of water fill the ocean, so will the merits shared from the human world reach the beings in the ghost world. Right? That's why we do the pouring water. You understand the symbolism now? One should share merits with departed relatives, recalling, "He gave to me, he worked for me, he was a relative, friend, and companion." Weeping, sorrow, and lamentation will not benefit departed relatives in any way. They will remain in the ghost world no matter how much we cry. Great King, the merit shared from the donations given to the noble disciples of the Buddha will be received by the departed relatives right away. They will enjoy happiness for a long time. Sharing merits with departed relatives is a very good habit to develop. You have respected departed relatives and supported the monks. By doing this, you have collected much merit, which will result in extraordinary happiness for a long time, Great King. Yes, it's a nice little shorter one, but it also shows why we do the pouring of water And it tells us a little bit about the state of our departed relatives. All right. As I suspected, there are a couple questions in the chat. So now it's time for the Q&A. Let's go here. Let me go up, 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 up. Oh, thank you, Pandit, for sharing the link to the sutta for everyone else to. S says, do animals create karma like during? Yes, 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 yes. All beings, right, are heirs to the karma. All beings create karma in all states of realms, and that's why we have to try to do our best if we have, any pets, of not letting them do naughty things, right? We need to try our best to protect them from themselves, from perpetuating their current state. Dharma Learner says, good morning, Bhante, and to everyone here. May you be well and safe. Okay, here's a question. As dear Bhante, if we rebirth as an animal for one life, and after that, how much is the chance of becoming a human? I don't know. I have no idea. So the thing is that while you're a human, please follow the 5 precepts and practice meritorious actions and try your best to have right view. So you, even though maybe you are reborn as an animal, at some future point, you make it easier, right? More probable for you to be reborn as a human. Yeah, remember trying to figure out our karma is something that the Buddha said will make us go crazy. So don't try to figure it out. Just kind of stick to these principles of what leads you in the right direction. Sud says, dear Bhante, can you shed some light on how idle chatter is unwholesome and is making someone get negative results? To me, it's a distraction. It's kind of like entertainment, right? And when we do idle chatter, it's usually we don't idle chatter about good things. We don't idle chatter about like doing wholesome deeds or idle chatter about the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, or remembering the good actions of people in the past. It just kind of leads you anywhere. Like you'll end up talking about something negative at some point if you get involved in idle chatter, right? And then the kind of environment that you're with when people are either practicing like gossiping and idle chatter and things like that is you kind of feel it too at some point once you like talk for a few minutes that it's not really beneficial and you start talking about some weird things. So it's kind of like intoxicants, right? Like you take an intoxicant, besides that, like you're poisoning your body at the same time, right? You don't really see the negative side to it. But if you're intoxicated, that can lead to killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, unwholesome speech, etc. Right? So gossiping is something like that, or idle chatter is something like that, where it's very easy to go into unwholesomeness. So that's the way I see it when it comes to avoiding idle chatter. S says, if we have some years of the intention of becoming an animal, if we had some years of the intention of becoming an animal seriously, would that actually affect the results of? Yes, it will. There's suttas, right? The ascetic who practices the dog duty ascetic and the cow duty ascetic practice, right? So they have this intention of being like a cow and like a dog, and the Buddha says, stop doing that. You're going to be reborn, if you're lucky, as an animal, as a dog or a cow. Well, most likely you're going to be reborn in hell for trying to practice that way, right? So we need to be very careful what we entertain in our mind and the kind of habits and inclinations that we foster. If we do those of an animal, if we're lucky, we're reborn as an animal. If we're unlucky, we might even be reborn in hell. Do the monastics, do any regular practice for the everything all the danas, every single time we do the meal ceremonies, right? The meal ceremonies is something for the departed ones. We always take our departed ones into consideration, or anytime that we do a wholesome deed, we can always share, right? Dedicate our merit to our departed beings. So is there a particular practice outside of the everyday practice that we do? I'm not aware. I don't know. At least not in the monks that I've been around, we do anything, particularly just for them, besides the water pouring ceremony that everyone else does, lay people do for their departed ones. Yeah, so it's basically just the same thing as everyone else does. For those of us who didn't, Rebecca asked, She asks another question: for those of us who didn't grow up in a Buddhist household, how are there any special chants and offerings we can do for the Petas? Yeah, so there's the pouring water chant, and then you can find that online. There's also the sharing merit chants. So there's a lot of chants about sharing merits, but the important thing is the intention. If you chant these words and you don't know what you're saying and you don't have the intention and you're just kind of like parroting them, it's not going to do anything. It doesn't really. There's nothing special about the actual kind of uh, words themselves. It's our intention, our state of mind that's important. So you can go ahead and do it in English, right? When you say when you do any meritorious deed, you can say, I dedicate this to my departed relatives. May they rejoice in this wholesome action, and that's good enough. But some of us do like to do the chanting, and so then you can just do any of those, and then we also share with devas, and we can share with ourselves too, right? We can dedicate the merits to ourselves too, for it to be for our future benefit. SS, are plants counted as sentient beings? Not in the suttas. I don't see that. I've never seen anything like that where the plants are counted as sentient beings. Actually, that's like some debates arose or conflicts arose between the Buddhist community and the other communities in India at that time who thought plants were sentient. So there is some discussion about it in the suttas. New user from Bangladesh, Shukihon, may you be well. Marie Tejada, good morning. Sud says, Dear Bhante, what leads to rebirth among humans versus devas like Brahma, since they are both described following the 5 precepts? Yeah, so usually when we think about heavenly beings, especially since you said devas like Brahma is the cultivation of the Brahma Viharas. That's why it's called Brahma Vihar, right? The dwelling of Brahma, or the dwelling of the Brahmas. So if we more we purify our minds, we're free from greed, hatred, and maybe not delusion, but from greed and hatred, definitely, and practice more metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha, we are more likely to be reborn in those places, and that's why they're called that. So I think to the degree that we practice giving and the 5 precepts and have right view, right, that maybe we do it more than it would be required to be reborn as a human. We could take it a little bit further. That would take us to these higher realms. But it's definitely karma and our intentions of harmlessness and generosity and altruism and compassion and kindness that start moving us up this kind of level of sentient beings until we get to the Brahma realm. SS, thank you, Bhante. Oh, okay. Let's wait a few seconds, see if there's any other questions that will come along. Yeah, and I'm going to continue with this topic on Petas, and I'm gonna take it even further outside of the Pali Suttas and start going into Mahayana Sutras, and just to cover the vast variety of people that we have watching here. Not everyone here is exclusively just following the Suttas. I'm gonna talk about a few short suttas from the Chinese tradition and another one from they're both, and then the following time I'll talk from another Chinese sutra that's very important for both Chinese, Taiwanese, and the Vietnamese tradition. Here's a question. How intense should practice, Sud says, how intense should practice of Brahma Viharas be to be reborn as a Brahma? And can someone continue to practice there? How intense? I mean, I don't know the scale. If it's 1 to 100 or 1 to 1,000. But definitely, to the degree that at least you have one moment of like pure metta, right? So I see this example where the Buddha goes, if one for at least one moment, 1 second or whatever, has a mind of boundless loving kindness towards all beings, that is more than giving, so many offerings for 100 years or more than doing so many actions, etc., etc. So it's really, I think, about uh, the intensity, right? Like the depth that you can do it, and then also the frequency, how often you practice it. So the more you do it, the more benefits you'll get, and so just keep doing that. I mean, there's no scales that's given in thing like how many minutes or how many hours, how many times a week. Sud says practice. I guess I mean equals practice of the Dhamma. How Brahman has to be reborn in Brahma, so something things to practice equals the practice of Dhamma. I mean, we should be living the Dhamma from the moment that we wake up until when we go to sleep. And then I found it even useful in our dreams to practice Dhamma, but I don't expect that of everyone. It's a little difficult, but even in your dreams, if you notice that you're doing something unwholesome in your dreams, tell yourself in your dream, no, don't do this. This is unwholesome. So you can even work with it there. S says, is there any sutta about past lives? Is it possible to talk about it? Yes, there's a lot of suttas about past lives. Is it possible to talk about it? Yes, it's possible to talk about it. The Buddha uses it a lot to kind of give context to why people are in the state that they're in right now, and why they're doing such actions, why they have such inclinations and patterns of mind. There's also certain beings that can that can look into the past, right? So if you look in the suttas, you'll see certain monks that can have the power to look back a few lives and see why themselves or someone else. Like I think it's Mohamogalana who says that in the past he was a Mara. That's why he knows Mara. So a Mara appears to him and he goes, I see you, Mara. And I know you because in the past I was a Mara myself. So yes, it is possible to talk about it, but we should not focus too much of it. The Buddha told us, right? Who was I in the past? What was I in the past? Where was I in the past? How was I in the past? These are things that we should not focus too much on. It shouldn't be the purpose of our practice. If we happen to get these information while we're practicing, oh, well, that's nice, and then maybe we can leverage that information so we continue doing the good things that we did in the past in this life and avoid doing the bad things that we did in the past, so it can help us in this very life and in future lives. But past that, it's not really that important. What else? Then Sud, another question. So do Brahma Devas practice the Dhamma, or usually blissed out and can't practice there? I mean, from what we see, there's a lot of Brahmas, right, that are still around. I would think that studied under the Buddha, knew about the Buddha, and are practicing the Dhamma. So, Brahma Samapati, Mahabrahma. There's so many Brahmas and by different names. Sometimes it's the same Brahma by a different name. And the retinue of Brahma, which are all the other Brahmas. And many Devas, right? So in Sri Lanka, they believe that Saka, Indra, right now, he's the protector of Dhamma in the heavenly realm. And on earth, he's the one who's going to keep the Dhamma going. So him and then the other gods there are also practicing Dhamma. But it's just like it, in a similar way that it's difficult for us to practice because we're so worried about our careers and things like that. It's difficult for many of them to practice because of there's not that much suffering, and there's a lot of pleasant sensations, right? There's a lot of pleasure that they're experiencing, that divine pleasure. So they might get distracted from time to time too. But from what I've seen, there's many devas who went to refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And according to what we learn in the suttas about their length of their lifespan, they should be around, most of them. And so therefore they're still practicing Dhamma to this day. S says, is Yaka the same as Imara? No. Yaka is usually translated as demons, but they're just kind of like these feisty beings, I would say. Sometimes I don't know why, but when I first started learning about Yakas, not more from like a Hindu perspective and more of like an esoteric perspective, I always kind of thought of them as kind of like Sasquatches, woolly mammoths, or Yetis or something like that within those readings that I saw there. So they're kind of like savage too. When you see them in the suttas, they're kind of portrayed like these savage beings that live out in the wilderness and they have these armies, and they're always hitting people over the head with the club and stuff like that, Um, so yeah, but they're different. They're different than Maras. A Mara is actually a very high form of a deva. So they're a particular type of deva, and there's many Maras, right? It's not only one. There's the whole plane of Maras. Yeah. Pandit says thanks, and yeah, I think that's good for today. And don't worry, we're gonna talk more while I'm here every Friday. I'll be talking a little bit more about the Petas, about our departed ones, within different contexts. So we'll learn more. We'll expand our view and knowledge about the Petas and how to, help them in their difficult state that they find themselves in, and also to protect us from avoiding uh, being reborn in that state. Yeah, so that's it for today. I remind you that this evening we have Monk Chat, and you're welcome to join us. And also, if you are in the New Jersey area or can be in the New Jersey area this weekend, we have our Friday evening programs and we have our Sunday afternoon programs in person to actually see the monks if you can come here. And then during the week, we have so many opportunities to listen to the Dhamma, so many Dhamma talks from not only the monastics here, but monastics in Sri Lanka and Thailand. So you can help us, because I've looked at the videos. If you are watching, I see the views and then I see the likes and they don't match up. So if you are watching this, please like the video. It helps. It helps. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please subscribe and share. I know some people do a very good job of sharing these videos on their Facebook profiles. So, if you found any benefit to this, please share. Dhammadana is the highest form of dana. You can share this video. And also, you can, like, you're very good at putting thanks here. You can also go into the comments and put thanks. So, the more engagement we get, that also helps to share the Dhamma with other people who maybe are just clicking on YouTube. They had no idea, but all of a sudden something will, Buddhist insights and some Dhamma talk will pop out, and that can change their life. I mean, it happened to me. That's how I came across Ajahn Brahm, and I started following Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism. So, out of compassion for these beings and wanting to accrue merit, please help with the algorithm. Yes. All right. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye-bye.